The movie begins with Jennifer, who, after working extra hours, sends a message to her boyfriend to try and rekindle their relationship, which didn't end well. She does this taking advantage of the long weekend due to Valentine's Day. We also meet Roy, a man who has his office in the same building as Jennifer, where they both meet in the same elevator, appearing to be the last ones in the building. The man tells Jennifer his motivation for taking 3 days off after a long workday, and he's also quite observant, noticing that Jennifer is carrying a gift for her Valentine's date. At the same time, she observes that Roy was also planning to celebrate. Roy sees a drawing of a man trapped in the elevator and uses it to continue talking to Jennifer. But it's at that moment that everything begins, as the elevator malfunctions and gets stuck. Roy tries to call security and activate the emergency alarm, but nothing works. Apparently, the elevator panel has broken down. He tries to open the door, but it turns out to be impossible. They try to signal the security guard through the camera, but nothing works. We see that in the security office, no one is monitoring the area. After several hours trapped, they decide to try and get out through the elevator ceiling, but it's impossible, and on the contrary, Jennifer ends up getting hurt. They soon realize that if they don't manage to fix the situation, they will be trapped until Tuesday after the weekend. As time passes, they start chatting a bit because they have no other choice. Roy keeps trying to be nice. Jennifer feels a bit thirsty, and Roy very kindly gives her his water. The girl, somewhat embarrassed, accepts it. A couple of hours later, Jennifer really needs to pee, and although Roy tells her she can do it, she says she's very embarrassed because she's very shy, and it makes her very ashamed. After struggling with the urge to relieve herself, she decides to do it in a metal coffee thermos she had. By this point, Jennifer realizes she has missed her flight and decides to complete the elevator drawing herself trapped. They both start talking and begin to open up to each other. Besides being trapped, they also share the fact of leading solitary lives. After thinking for a bit, they decide to open the bottle of wine Roy had and start drinking a little. After drawing to pass the time, Roy decides to be honest with Jennifer. He tells her that he had seen her before and thought she was a very attractive woman, but he hadn't said anything because he didn't want to make her uncomfortable. Even so, Jennifer doesn't pay much attention. They start sharing experiences of times they've done the deed. Jennifer recounts a time she did naughty things in the library. And Roy, on his part, tells her about a time when, after an office gathering, he ended up doing the deed in the car, a situation that, besides making him blush, woke up his friend. After Jennifer gives him the green light, Roy expresses his desire to kiss her, approaches her very slowly and kisses her, and then they do the delicious. After finishing the act, which won't happen only this time in the movie, Jennifer expresses being embarrassed by what happened, but Roy tells her that for him it was something special. Jennifer makes it clear that it was a one-time fling and that she is in love with her ex-boyfriend, which is why she is going to try to get their relationship back. Roy says he feels a lot of chemistry between them and wants to go out with her after they get out of the elevator. He becomes somewhat insistent, telling her that he is better than her loser ex. Even so, she makes her intentions to return to her ex very clear, as she is very much in love with him. What Jennifer didn't know is that this would cause that situation to turn into a nightmare. Roy felt so hurt that he decides to confess the whole truth to Jennifer. Roy decides to be even more honest. It turns out that the guy decided to pretend to be an accountant for a corporation in that building, but in reality, he was a security guard whose post was at the reception, and he had always watched her through the cameras to the point of becoming obsessed with the girl. Furthermore, this whole situation was his idea to get to know her this way. The guy keeps insisting that he is much better than her loser ex. Even so, Jennifer doesn't change her mind, and Roy gives up on his idea and makes the decision to open the elevator with his emergency key. The guy tells Jennifer to leave, but at that moment, Jennifer, seized by a panic attack, tells him he's crazy and that she will send him to jail. Roy, hearing this, decides not to let Jennifer out, and after a struggle, Jennifer ends up breaking the elevator key. Subsequently, she ends up punching him, knocking him unconscious. When she approaches him and it seems he is dead, he manages to grab her hair to hit her. This is how they both end up unconscious on the floor. When she wakes up, he is sitting in another corner. He also explains to her that for him that was the best way for her to notice him, besides being able to get to know each other without any distractions. He even let his colleagues have these days off so they could be completely alone. And it worked perfectly because they were able to connect. And if it weren't for her, they would have had a nice relationship. He keeps talking about how he didn't force her to do anything and says he liked what had happened, but if necessary, he would send her to St. Peter so that she wouldn't report him because he has already been in prison and doesn't plan to go through that again. Jennifer is completely scared on the floor while he hits everything and takes it out on the gifts she had prepared for her boyfriend. After a while, he apologizes, asks her for another chance, and tells her that he is sometimes violent when he gets angry, but not to worry, although he keeps breaking things, which helps him discover that one of the ceiling panels doesn't seem to have any screws. After that, he manages to break and remove that panel, and he asks Jennifer for help to climb up. She tells him it would be easier for her to climb up, but he refuses because he doesn't want her to betray him. Besides, he already knows what he has to do because it's part of his job. So Jennifer tries to trick him, making him believe that if he lets her go up, she won't say anything because she doesn't want him to end up in prison, and she will also give him another chance to be together. These words are enough for him to change his mind and let her go. He gives her the instructions, and as soon as she climbs up, she has the great idea to show him that she doesn't care about anything. As expected, this makes him angry, so he looks for ways to climb up and ends up succeeding. Meanwhile, Jennifer has to reach a door that is quite high to open it and get out. He gets out of the elevator, and this makes it much more difficult to concentrate and maintain balance, but he reaches her in very little time, and although she manages to open the door, she doesn't have enough strength to do it, and he prefers that they both fall rather than let her escape. So he throws himself, but grabbing the girl, and they both end up completely unconscious from the impact. Afterward, she is the first to get up and has the idea to set off the fire alarm, causing smoke. He wakes up, but she breaks his nose and quickly ties him up. She tells him that his idea won't work because they could end up electrocuting themselves, which in the end doesn't happen, but no alarm sounds either. At one point, she tortures him by threatening to cut off his friend, but she doesn't do it, and instead, she records him to be able to report him. Having his testimony, we find out how he managed to stop the elevator and his whole plan. We also find out that his real name is John Dickens, and she forces him to say all the things he did to her, like hitting her and kidnapping her. It turns out that he did work for a big company, and that his story about almost doing it with a girl in the car was real, only that because he was drunk, he didn't realize he was going towards a cliff. They ended up crashing, and for the girl's death, he was sent to jail. But when he got out, no company wanted an ex-convict anymore, and he spent all his money until he ended up accepting a job as a guard. He also tells her that he had always liked her, and that's why he needed to be with her and talk to her, as that was the way he felt like the person he used to be and regained power. On the other hand, we see Eddie, another security guard, arrive at the building with his girlfriend Ruby. As soon as he enters, he realizes that his partner is not there, so he checks the security cameras and sees how Dickens is locked in with a girl. There, he uses the elevator communicator to talk to him. The problem is that Jennifer answers him asking for help but doesn't tell him anything about what happened, so he goes to help him. When he arrives at the elevator, he opens the door and sees Jennifer, who is desperate to get out. But the worst thing is that when he goes to look for a tool, John tricks him and tells him it would be better if he goes up because he is having problems, and when half of his body is inside, he realizes the whole situation. But his partner activates the elevator and cuts him in half, and on top of that, John ends up hitting Jennifer to knock her unconscious and put her in the trunk of his car. After that, he throws his friend down the elevator shaft, puts on his uniform, and lastly also deletes all the files from the cameras and microphones. But the important thing is that just when he is doing it, Ruby appears and asks him about her boyfriend. He tells her that Eddie left and that she should leave too. But when she turns around, he finishes her off so as not to leave any witnesses. After that, he drives to an area where there is a garbage container, and where he plans to throw Jennifer along with all her belongings, to then set her on fire with gasoline, and finally end this whole matter. But before saying goodbye, he starts talking to her about how he regrets what happened, and that he still loves her. The point is that since she doesn't answer, he opens the trunk to see if she is still alive. It seems that Jennifer has died, but when he moves away and turns around, she gets out to hit him with the gasoline canister, and finally seizes this moment to get in the car and can finally escape. Although when she sees him in the rearview mirror, she knows she can't leave it like this, so she starts driving in reverse to run over John. The subject ends up getting into the container, and when she sees him lying there, she decides to take revenge and sets him on fire with one of the cigarettes. And now, yes, after all that, she can continue with her life. And that's how this movie ends. Don't forget to subscribe and see you in the next video. Goodbye.